Everyone among us is, in one way or another, a victim of psychological manipulation. Since childhood, you've been compelled by your parents through fear tactics to behave, eat faster, or go to bed early. Growing up, you're caught in the whirlwind of achievements and grades, like a puppet controlled by the pressure of reputation and recognition. As you step into adulthood, the dreams of high salaries and promotions are merely games played by your superiors to trap you in the prison of work. When in love, you think you're enjoying happiness, but in reality, you're just a victim of primal sexual desires. Finally, in old age, you're easily subdued by the fear of illness and death. Can you see this harsh truth? We have all lived in a state of manipulation without realizing it, or worse, not daring to admit it. It's time to awaken, to look squarely at the nature of manipulation and to find ways to break free from it. There's no longer any reason to accept this control, nor is there a need to fear upsetting anyone. The crucial thing is to act, to change, and to reclaim the autonomy that has been stolen. Let's build a community of kindness by subscribing to Stoicism for Success right now and sharing it with those you wish to see live with kindness and strength like us. Let's spread these positive values together. The nature of psychological manipulation. Psychological manipulation is a sophisticated process that targets your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, controlling you through external influence that you don't even notice. It is a silent yet powerful form of control, attacking the psychological vulnerabilities of people. The worrying aspect is that you often don't realize you are being manipulated, as it hides behind sweet words, caring actions, or seemingly genuine support. Manipulation doesn't just occur in personal relationships, but extends to everyday interactions, including the media and social networks. Manipulators often use psychological tactics to affect your emotions, leaving you confused, self-doubting, and easier to control. The importance of understanding manipulation. Have you ever felt pushed into a passive position, forced to follow someone else's will without having your own voice? If you don't recognize it, then this is nothing but a catastrophic failure of your instinct to protect yourself. Psychological manipulation is not just a subtle game, but a silent attack on you, targeting your emotions, rationality, and self-respect. Each time you comply with others' demands against your will, you are binding yourself with the chains of control. More frighteningly, manipulation doesn't just come from those around you, but also from society and the media, where you are led like an obedient lamb. Manipulators cleverly turn you into a tool serving their interests while making you believe you are being cared for. Not only do you lose your personal freedom, but you also lose your right to make decisions. What could be more sorrowful than living a life that isn't truly yours? Don't think of manipulation as mere trifles. It is a gradual erosion that wears down your judgment and strips away your autonomy. If you don't quickly wake up and take action, you'll turn into an obedient puppet, lose your resolve, and eventually fall into a pit of despair when nothing belongs to you anymore. When the manipulator achieves their goal, the damage is not just psychological, but can also have serious consequences on your legal standing and personal honor. So, how can you escape this toxic trap? First, you must identify manipulation clearly. Don't be easily fooled by sweet words or fake care. Build strong personal boundaries and stand firm. Don't be afraid to say no and defend your stance resolutely. This is not only a way to maintain personal freedom, but also a weapon against all forms of manipulation. If you're unwilling to change, you're just a victim in the cruel game of life. You must face the harsh truth. Only you can save yourself from the hands of manipulators. 10 Stoic lessons to avoid being controlled. 1. Emotional manipulation. Have you ever felt drawn by emotions that aren't truly yours? This is the clearest sign of emotional manipulation, one of the most ruthless and sophisticated forms of control. It's not just a game for the cunning. It's a dangerous weapon that can turn you into an easy, blind victim. Emotional manipulation is like a brutal chess game where the pieces are your emotions and the board is your mind, flipped and twisted by someone else's intentions. Emotional manipulators don't need to shout or use violence to achieve their goals. They can employ subtle tactics like false affection, conditional sympathy, or even strategic silences. Sometimes they make you feel guilty for simply defending your rights. Other times, they instill fear about vague consequences if you don't follow their desires. It feels as if you're being pushed into a dark corner, illuminated only by a single light controlled by the manipulator. That's when you completely lose your bearings and become dependent on their guidance. The simplest yet saddest example of emotional manipulation is when a friend asks you to do something inappropriate, and when you refuse, they say, "I thought we were friends." Instantly, you feel guilty for putting your own needs above the relationship, then spiral into self-blame for having done the wrong thing. This is a classic manipulator tactic, turning your loyalty and affection into tools for their benefit. So how do you protect yourself? First, you must become clearly aware of your emotions, like a gardener knowing every plant in their garden. This awareness helps you quickly identify when someone is deliberately trying to control your emotions. Next, you must establish clear boundaries. Don't be afraid to say no, and remember that you don't need to please everyone. Finally, seek balance in relationships. If you constantly feel like you're dancing to someone else's tune, it's time to reevaluate that relationship. Emotional manipulation is a dark art, but if you're strong enough to recognize it, set boundaries, and maintain balance, you can master the protection of your own emotions. In the chess game of life, you are the king or queen of your destiny. 2. Logical fallacies. This is one of the most sophisticated weapons of manipulators. These are arguments that seem logical on the surface, but are actually cleverly disguised traps. This is how manipulators guide you into a maze of misunderstandings, making you not only doubt yourself, but also make serious mistakes. Imagine wandering through a desert, seeing hopeful mirages of a refreshing oasis. But as you get closer, you realize it's just an illusion. Logical fallacies work the same way. They pretend to offer logic, but upon closer inspection, the argument is just empty air with no solid foundation. A common example of a logical fallacy is the personal attack. Ad hominem. Instead of addressing the main issue, the manipulator shifts to criticizing your character, history, or personal traits to distract from the topic. It's like throwing sand in your eyes to prevent you from seeing the core of the debate. Another frequent fallacy is hasty generalization, where the manipulator uses one or two isolated cases to draw conclusions about an entire group. For example, if one person in a group makes a mistake, they claim the entire group is incompetent. This tactic not only fosters misunderstanding, but also reinforces prejudice and discrimination. Moreover, the slippery slope fallacy argues that a minor action will inevitably lead to a series of catastrophic events. For example, if you allow your child to stay up late one night, this fallacy would claim that the child will become a chronic insomniac. How do you protect yourself from these fallacies? First, learn to recognize them. Whenever you hear an argument, ask yourself, does this argument really address the main issue, or is it just a distraction? And is it based on solid evidence or mere speculation? Be an alert listener. Analyze carefully, and don't be easily swayed by the mirage of logical traps. In short, being cautious of logical fallacies is like having a compass amidst a sea of false arguments. You need to use it to stay on course, protecting your clarity against these sophisticated manipulative tactics. 3. Gaslighting. This is one of the most ruthless tactics manipulators use to destroy your psychology. It's not visible punches, but invisible attacks on your perception, memory, and emotions. Gaslighting is a wicked mental game where the manipulator deliberately creates false events or misinformation, making you doubt your own reality. For those facing it, gaslighting can gradually erode self-confidence, turning you into a shadow of yourself, devoid of self-belief and the ability to make sound decisions. Consider a real-life example in daily relationships. Suppose you and your partner agreed to have dinner together on Friday night. But when the day comes, they deny having made any plans and even accuse you of making it up or having a bad memory. You're sure you remember correctly, but their constant denial and firm attitude make you start questioning yourself. Maybe I really am remembering wrong? This not only causes confusion, but also weakens your confidence, making you more dependent on them to validate reality. Another example could be in a work environment. Your boss assigns you a specific task, calling it the top priority. But after dedicating all your time to it, they deny ever making that request and scold you for not completing other tasks. This leaves you feeling confused, doubting whether you heard correctly, and gradually feeling incompetent. This is how gaslighting works, stripping away your self-trust and turning you into a tool for someone else's control. In another scenario, perhaps you live with a roommate who frequently moves things around the house, but insists they haven't touched anything when you ask. You're sure you left your keys on the table, but find them in the bathroom. When you question them, they mock you, saying that you're imagining things or too sensitive. Gradually, you start doubting your sanity, feeling you can't even trust yourself with the smallest details. Gaslighting works this way, eroding your trust in yourself. How can you escape gaslighting's grip? First, trust your intuition. If something feels off, it probably is. Keep records of events, conversations, and feelings to have a factual reference when needed. For example, if you're certain about discussing a matter with someone, note the date, time, and details of the conversation. Don't hesitate to seek support from trusted friends, family, or mental health professionals. Gaslighting is a dangerous weapon of manipulation that can destroy your perception and self-belief. But if you identify and understand it, you can equip yourself with effective mental strategies to maintain self-respect and trust in yourself. 4. Group pressure. This is one of the most powerful yet hardest to detect forms of manipulation. It works quietly, making you feel compelled to follow the crowd's opinions simply to avoid being different or excluded. While group consensus can generate positive power, group pressure can suffocate individual thinking, causing you to lose your stance and personal values. This is not merely a matter of wanting to fit in, but a serious compromise of autonomy and free will. A classic example is in the school environment. You might be a good student, but your close friends often skip school to play games or hang out at a cafe. They repeatedly tease you for being too serious, making you feel boring. To avoid being alienated, you start compromising, neglecting your studies to join them. Gradually, you not only lose your academic achievements, but also feel ashamed of your decisions, all because you didn't want to be the odd one out. This is how group pressure manipulates you, turning you into a version of yourself you no longer recognize. In the workplace, group pressure can manifest when colleagues often accept unethical practices to achieve quick results, saying, "This is how everyone survives in this industry." You feel pressured to follow along to avoid being seen as naive or unrealistic. Here, group pressure not only pushes you to compromise your principles, but could even lead you to break the law, doing things against your conscience just to be accepted. Group pressure can also appear in personal relationships. When your friends collectively adopt a certain lifestyle, like going vegan or exercising daily, you may feel compelled to do the same, even if it doesn't suit you. You feel caught between standing by your principles and fitting in with your group of friends. To avoid being pushed aside, you start forcing yourself to change your lifestyle without any genuine agreement or comfort within yourself. How do you protect yourself from group pressure? First, clearly understand your personal values and goals. This will help you recognize when you're going against your principles just to please others. Second, establish personal boundaries. Learn to say no firmly when you realize that the situation contradicts your values. Lastly, build relationships based on mutual respect, where you can be yourself without having to conform to others' opinions. Group pressure can drive you far from your true self, but if you're strong enough to maintain your principles and values, you'll become an independent individual who's not easily controlled by others' opinions. Let's come together to support our community. If you are a kind person, please hit the like button on this video and leave some energetic comments to spread positive vibes. Together, we can make a difference. 5. Excessive flattery. Excessive flattery is a subtle manipulation tactic that conceals real intentions behind exaggerated and superficial praise. These compliments are not genuine. They are a ploy to shake your stance, making you more susceptible to the manipulator's control without realizing it. Flattery that is taken to an unrealistic level does not aim to honor you, but to serve the flatterer's interests. Excessive flattery not only creates artificial excitement, but also fosters dependency on those who praise you, making you easy prey to their manipulation. Imagine a colleague at work constantly complimenting you on your abilities, even describing you as the game changer of the team. Initially, this might seem like positive motivation, making you feel recognized. However, when that person starts asking you for help with tasks they don't want to do, you find it hard to refuse, having already been labeled as the hero of the team. At this point, you become a victim of false praise, losing your ability to make independent decisions. Another example could be in romantic relationships. Your partner frequently praises your beauty and perfection, making you feel special and appreciated. However, when you don't comply with their demands, those praises turn into subtle criticisms or even threats. You're beautiful, but don't know how to keep your happiness. You realize that the compliments weren't genuine, but a tool for controlling your emotions. Excessive flattery can also be seen in social and political settings. When a politician keeps showering you with praise about your patriotism, dedication, or contributions, it may be a tactic to turn you into a tool for their personal gain. You end up being drawn into commitments or actions you initially had no intention of making, just because you feel pressured to reciprocate the praise you've received. How can you recognize and avoid the trap of excessive flattery? First, distinguish between genuine compliments and exaggerated flattery. Genuine praise is often specific and focused on real achievements, while excessive flattery tends to be vague and overblown. Second, maintain emotional distance from compliments. Don't let them cloud your sense of self-worth and balance. Don't be afraid to refuse unreasonable requests, even if they are wrapped in compliments. Lastly, build inner confidence. Understand your true worth, so you're not easily swayed by hollow praises from others. Excessive flattery is a dangerous tool in the manipulator's arsenal, but if you remain alert and strong, you won't be deceived by its false shine. Confidence and independence are your strongest shields against this type of deceptive flattery. 6. Isolation. This is a ruthless and cold manipulation tactic, where the manipulator deliberately isolates you from external support, such as family, friends, colleagues, or any social connection that could help you see the truth. Their goal is to make you weaker and more controllable, as when you have no one else to turn to for advice or support, you're forced to rely solely on the manipulator. This form of control is subtle, but can lead to serious psychological harm, pushing you toward feelings of despair and loneliness. Imagine being in a romantic relationship where your partner constantly criticizes or badmouths your friends and family, claiming that these people aren't good for you, or that they don't understand you like I do. Gradually, you start doubting those close to you. feeling unsafe around them. You begin to see them as envious or obstructive, leading you to isolate yourself, leaving only the manipulator as your sole support. At this point, you're entirely under their control. Another example is in the workplace. Your boss may create isolation by bad-mouthing you in front of colleagues or preventing you from building relationships with them. They might say, "No one here really cares about you, only I'm on your side." Gradually, you feel isolated at work, with no allies or support, forcing you to rely solely on your boss for protection and guidance. Even within the family, parents can use isolation to control children by preventing them from making friends or participating in social activities, making the children feel that the parents are the only ones who truly understand and love them. The result is a child who grows up entirely dependent on the parents, lacking independence, social skills, or a support network to rely on in times of need. How do you break free from isolation? First, clearly recognize when someone is trying to separate you from those close to you. Don't accept baseless criticism or doubts about your friends, family, or colleagues. Keep strong ties with your support network, even if it's challenging or opposed by the manipulator. Continue talking to trusted individuals, sharing your concerns and feelings to gain an objective perspective on the situation. Second, establish firm and clear boundaries. Don't let anyone control who you associate with or how you spend your time. You have the right to decide your own life without anyone's control. Lastly, take time for self-care and build your self-confidence. Isolation only works when you lose trust in yourself. But if you're strong enough, you won't be easily drawn into its trap. Isolation is a brutal manipulation tactic, but if you recognize and handle it correctly, you can maintain your freedom, autonomy, and independence in both your actions and thoughts. 7. Ultimatums. This is one of the most coercive manipulation tactics, putting you in a take-it-or-leave-it position. Ultimatums are designed to create maximum pressure, forcing you to make quick decisions under stress, often going against your own interests or personal values. Ultimatums are disguised as choices, but in reality, they're a trap that makes you lose control and submit to the manipulator's will. A typical example in romantic relationships is when your partner says, "If you don't change, we'll have to break up." This statement is not a negotiation or compromise, but an ultimatum meant to back you into a corner. You feel like you must choose between keeping the relationship by changing who you are or risking the loss of a loved one. The cruelty of ultimatums lies in their exploitation of your fear of loss, compelling you to act in a way that aligns with the manipulator's desires, even though you lack a true choice. In the workplace, ultimatums can appear as, "Complete this project in 2 days, or you'll be fired." This situation not only creates extreme stress, but also forces you to sacrifice your personal time and health to meet the demands. As a result, you become a puppet in your boss's hands, continuously enduring unfair and unreasonable demands because you're constantly placed in difficult choices. In family relationships, parents may use ultimatums to control their children, saying things like, "If you don't pursue the career we've chosen, don't consider us family anymore." This statement not only backs children into a corner, but also damages the family bond. Compliance in such situations often doesn't stem from free will, but from fear of being disowned and left without a support system. How do you handle ultimatums? First, take a moment to pause and breathe when confronted with one. Ultimatums are designed to create immediate pressure, so pausing and reflecting will help you regain calmness and clarity. Don't rush into a decision just because you feel pressured. Second, respond by asking clear questions about the ultimatum's logic. Why do I have to decide right now? Are there any other options? This helps shift the situation from passive to active, forcing the manipulator to explain and justify their demands. More importantly, you must establish clear boundaries. Don't let ultimatums force you into choosing between two extreme options. You have the right to refuse choices that make you uncomfortable. And you also have the right to protect your own interests without having to sacrifice everything. If a relationship, job, or situation constantly presents you with ultimatums to force compliance, it's not a healthy environment. Be ready to let go, because your freedom and dignity are more important than any relationship or situation that requires you to compromise unwillingly. Ultimatums are a form of coercive manipulation, but if you remain calm and resolute, you can face them without losing your dignity or freedom. 8. Blame. Blame is a ruthless and toxic manipulation tactic, where the manipulator intentionally shifts responsibility onto you, making you feel guilty and more likely to yield to their will. This is a subtle weapon that's not easy to detect, but its consequences can be deeply damaging, eroding your confidence and making you feel like you're the cause of every problem. The manipulator's goal is to make you accept responsibility that isn't yours, making it easier to control your behavior and decisions. Imagine a romantic relationship where your partner says, "If you cared more, I wouldn't act this way." This statement is a manipulative blame tactic that shifts responsibility onto you instead of the other person owning up to their behavior. You start questioning yourself, wondering if you're really at fault, if you've been too indifferent or cold. This self-doubt not only makes you feel guilty, but also more submissive, easily accepting unreasonable demands in an attempt to make up for your perceived shortcomings. Blame in love is designed to make the victim feel powerless and fearful of losing the relationship unless they comply. Another example is at work. Your boss might say, "This project failed entirely because you didn't do well enough," even though the failure resulted from multiple factors, including misdirection from the boss. You feel solely responsible, leading to guilt and a lack of confidence in your abilities. This is how workplace manipulators use blame to keep you submissive, always feeling indebted and eager to make up for mistakes. In family relationships, parents may use blame to control their children by saying, "If you don't get good grades, you're disappointing us," even if the child has tried their best. This not only places the burden of responsibility and guilt on the child, but also makes them feel like the source of the family's disappointment, making them easier to control. How do you defend against blame? First, ask yourself whether you're truly responsible for the situation. Don't quickly accept guilt just because someone shifts it onto you. Analyze the situation objectively. Are you really to blame? If you believe you're not fully responsible, speak up and defend yourself. You might say, "I understand you're upset, but I don't agree with taking responsibility for this." Second, set clear boundaries. Don't let guilt linger, as it's the foundation manipulators use to continue exploiting you. You have the right to refuse responsibility that doesn't belong to you and to protect yourself from baseless accusations. Finally, build inner confidence. Manipulators succeed when you're uncertain about yourself and easily swayed by accusations. If you understand your value and responsibilities, you won't be easily deceived or pressured into taking blame that's not yours. Remember, confidence is the strongest shield against blame. Blame is a toxic manipulation tactic, but with alertness, determination, and self-protection, you can escape its trap and maintain control over your life. 9. Information overload. Information overload is a subtle manipulation tactic, using a flood of information to disorient, confuse, and impair your ability to make clear decisions. This is not an accidental occurrence, but a deliberate method to make you lose focus and control in the decision-making process. When caught in a storm of conflicting data, you become more vulnerable to those who know how to wield information for their gain. Imagine you're trying to buy a new phone, and the salesperson bombards you with countless details about features, technology, warranties, promotions, and complex specifications. you feel overwhelmed and unable to make a rational decision. In this state of confusion, you're easily manipulated into buying a product that benefits the seller rather than one that suits your real needs. In the workplace, your boss may use this tactic by presenting a series of complex reports and data in a short time frame, preventing you from fully grasping the content. In this situation, the boss might take advantage of your confusion to push decisions that benefit them or even shift blame onto you if the project fails. You end up feeling incompetent when in fact you were manipulated by the orchestrated information storm. Information overload can also occur in personal relationships. Suppose you're in an argument with your partner and they continuously bring up multiple arguments, evidence, and past incidents to blame you. You feel overwhelmed, not knowing where to start rebutting, and eventually give up just to end the stressful situation. This is how information overload can defeat you mentally, making you feel powerless and incapable of defending yourself. How do you protect yourself from this tactic? First, recognize when you're being overwhelmed with information. If you find yourself unable to understand or process the volume of information presented, acknowledge it to yourself and the person communicating with you. Don't hesitate to ask for a slower pace or focus only on the key points. Second, pause to analyze the information. When inundated with data, take a break and break down the information into smaller, more manageable parts. Ask questions, identify key elements, and filter out irrelevant details. Don't let yourself feel forced into making immediate decisions just because you're being bombarded with information. Finally, develop strong critical thinking skills. Don't believe everything you hear or read. Verify, analyze, and evaluate information carefully. Don't hesitate to ask questions, dig deeper, and seek advice from trusted sources to get a more complete perspective. Information overload is a subtle manipulation tactic, but if you stay calm, determined, and willing to pause and analyze, you can maintain control and make the right decisions. Remember, clarity and understanding are your strongest shields against the deceptive storms of information. 10. Topic shifting. This is one of the most common and sophisticated manipulation tactics, where the manipulator deliberately redirects your attention from the main issue to something else, usually unrelated or less important. It's a way for them to avoid accountability, evade tough questions, or sidestep scrutiny by pulling you into confusing, never-ending conversations. The purpose of this tactic is to make you lose focus on the core issue, making it easier for the manipulator to control the situation to their advantage. Consider a personal relationship scenario. You try to discuss with your partner about their frequent tardiness to dates. Instead of explaining or taking responsibility, they redirect by saying, "But you've also been late before. Why don't we talk about that?" This shifts you from being the questioner to being the accused, forcing you to defend yourself rather than resolving the initial problem. As you get drawn into this redirection, you easily forget the reason for the conversation, leaving the main issue unresolved. In the workplace, topic shifting can occur when you raise concerns about the effectiveness of a project your boss proposed. Instead of addressing your concerns directly, your boss might say, "Instead of worrying about this, let's focus on improving the company's overall performance." By doing so, you're pulled away from the central issue and pressured into discussing other aspects, losing the opportunity to clarify your original question. In political debates, when challenged about important social issues, a politician might abruptly shift the topic to praise their past achievements or criticize their opponents, derailing the discussion. This tactic allows them to evade difficult questions and maintain a positive image in front of the public. How do you handle topic shifting? First, recognize immediately when the main issue is being sidetracked. If you feel the conversation is veering off course, bring it back to the original point and ensure the discussion stays on track. Don't let yourself be distracted by the manipulator. For instance, you could say, "We can discuss that later, but right now, I want to clarify the issue we're talking about." Second, ask direct questions and demand specific answers. If you don't get a clear response, be patient and ask the person to provide detailed explanations. Don't accept vague answers or personal attacks as a way of evading the issue. Finally, maintain your stance. Don't let blame shifting or personal criticism distract you or undermine your confidence. You have the right to ask questions and seek transparency in any situation. Topic shifting is a common and subtle manipulation tactic, but if you remain patient, alert, and focused, you can maintain the integrity of the discussion and avoid being deceived. Remember, keeping a clear stance and direction is the key to countering deliberate distraction. Defensive strategies. Defensive strategies are a set of methods and skills that help you effectively counter manipulation tactics and protect yourself from others' subtle schemes. When faced with manipulation, you need to be aware, resolute, and take appropriate steps to maintain your position and safeguard your personal freedom. Below are essential defensive strategies to handle all forms of manipulation. Self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. This is the first and most crucial step in dealing with any form of manipulation, because manipulators can only control you when you are unclear about what you want, think, and feel. When you can objectively and clearly understand yourself, you become less susceptible to external manipulation, whether from loved ones, colleagues, or society at large. Imagine being in a relationship where your partner frequently complains that you don't care enough. You begin to feel guilty, but instead of simply accepting this, you pause and ask yourself, is it true that I'm not caring enough, or is this just a way to shift blame and control my emotions? Asking yourself questions and clearly assessing your emotions helps you avoid being pulled into emotional manipulation. In the workplace, self-awareness can protect you from pressure tactics by colleagues or bosses. For example, if you notice that you always feel stressed when working overtime without recognition, you should ask yourself, am I being exploited? What is my real motivation for working? When you understand the root of your dissatisfaction and anxiety, you can set boundaries and demand fairness without yielding to pressure. Self-awareness also plays a critical role in facing social challenges. When faced with group pressure, self-awareness helps you determine whether your decision truly reflects your values and principles or is merely a result of social pressure. For example, when friends urge you to participate in an activity that doesn't align with your values, pause and ask yourself, do I really want to do this, or am I just trying to fit in? This clarity helps you maintain your stance and not be swept along by the crowd. How do you develop self-awareness? First, take time to ask and listen to yourself. This can be as simple as keeping a journal, asking yourself questions about your emotions and thoughts daily. Ask yourself why you feel a certain way, whether the emotion matches the situation, and whether it aligns with your values. Don't just accept surface-level emotions. Dig deeper to understand their true cause. Second, pay attention to your body and physical sensations. Your body often reflects emotions that your mind doesn't recognize. If you feel tense, have headaches, or feel physically uncomfortable around someone, it could be a sign of manipulation or pressure. Lastly, be confident in asserting your personal values. Remember, you have the right to feel, think, and act in your way, even when it doesn't match others' expectations. Self-awareness is a powerful skill that helps you protect your freedom and dignity while avoiding subtle manipulation. Self-awareness is a sturdy shield that protects you from any form of manipulation. When you understand yourself, you won't easily be controlled by sweet words, blame, or external pressure. This clarity not only helps you maintain autonomy, but also leads to true freedom in life. Establish clear boundaries. Setting clear boundaries is one of the most crucial ways to protect yourself from manipulation. Boundaries are the limits you set to protect your values, emotions, and freedom, preventing others from infringing on your personal, mental, or legal rights. Without boundaries, you become an easy target for manipulators who will readily exploit your compliance for personal gain. Imagine having a friend who constantly calls you in the middle of the night to complain about their life. Initially, you want to listen and help, but over time, you start feeling exhausted and sleep-deprived. However, out of fear of hurting their feelings or causing conflict, you keep giving in. This is when you need to establish clear boundaries. Firmly state that you're willing to listen at other times, but not in the middle of the night when you need rest. If you don't, you'll continue to be exploited, harming your health. In the workplace, not setting boundaries can make you a target for workload exploitation. For example, if your boss constantly assigns extra tasks at the end of the day without any acknowledgement or support, you need to learn to say no. You can say professionally, "I'll do my best to complete the tasks within the workday, but I can't take on more at this time." Setting boundaries not only helps protect your work-life balance, but also earns respect from others. In romantic relationships, clear boundaries help maintain autonomy and avoid emotional manipulation. If your partner constantly demands you to change your behavior or abandon personal interests to please them, you need to say clearly, "I value your opinion, but I cannot change who I am entirely for anyone." This might lead to uncomfortable discussions, but it's a necessary step to avoid losing yourself in the relationship. How do you establish clear boundaries? First, identify your personal limits that you don't want crossed. This can include personal time, workspace, privacy, or anything you consider important. Ask yourself, what is unacceptable to me, and define specific boundaries accordingly. Second, communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively. Avoid vague or indirect statements, as they create opportunities for others to violate your limits. For example, instead of saying, "I'm not sure about this," say firmly, "I don't agree with this and won't do it." Finally, defend your boundaries consistently. When someone deliberately crosses your boundaries, don't hesitate to remind them and reinforce your limits. If you easily accept violations, your boundaries will lose meaning, and the manipulator will continue exploiting your compliance. Setting clear boundaries is a powerful way to protect your freedom, dignity, and mental health. It is a strong shield that helps you maintain control, balance, and independence, keeping manipulators at bay. Critical thinking. Critical thinking is a powerful tool that helps you identify, analyze, and evaluate information clearly, protecting you from sophisticated manipulation tactics. It's the ability to not take everything at face value, but to question the accuracy, logic, and motivations behind what's being presented. Critical thinking not only prevents you from being swayed by sweet talk, misinformation, or blame, but also helps you understand the true nature of issues, leading to well-informed decisions that aren't influenced by emotions or external pressures. Imagine a colleague presenting a new idea for a project. Instead of immediately agreeing or disagreeing, a critical thinker would ask, "Does this idea truly make sense? What evidence supports its feasibility? Does this benefit the project, or is it just for someone's personal gain?" This kind of questioning helps you avoid being swayed by persuasive rhetoric and enhances your ability to assess information objectively. In political or social debates, critical thinking helps you distinguish between truth and misinformation, which is often spread to manipulate public opinion. For instance, when hearing about a new policy claimed to benefit everyone, don't just accept it at face value. Instead ask, who truly benefits from this policy? Is there solid evidence of its effectiveness, or are these just empty promises? Critical thinking keeps you sharp and prevents you from being influenced by vague or emotional arguments. In personal relationships, critical thinking can protect you from manipulation disguised as emotional blackmail. For example, if your partner says, "You made me act this way because you don't care enough," a critical thinker would pause and reflect. Is this accusation valid? Is it based on real evidence, or is it a way to avoid responsibility? Instead of feeling guilty and accepting blame, you recognize it as an attempt to shift responsibility, allowing you to stand firm. How do you develop critical thinking? First, always question the information you receive. Don't accept everything as it's presented. Examine the evidence, motivations, and consistency of the information. Ask yourself, what proof is there to support this claim? Does it fit the context, or is it a tactic to manipulate my emotions? Second, analyze issues from multiple perspectives. This helps you avoid getting stuck in a single viewpoint and being manipulated by one-sided information. Consider whether alternative explanations exist, and don't hesitate to seek opinions from different sources for a more comprehensive understanding. Finally, stay firm in your stance, but be open to changing your view when faced with new, reliable evidence. Critical thinking isn't about being stubborn. It's about being willing to adjust your perspective based on sound reasoning. Don't let steadfastness turn into inflexibility. Use it as a tool to understand the truth and protect yourself from manipulation. Critical thinking is a strong armor that helps you maintain autonomy, protect yourself from deceit, and stay in control of your life. It's an essential skill in today's world, where information is often distorted or used to manipulate others. With critical thinking, you don't just stay clear-headed, but you become the master of your own decisions. Communication. Communication is a vital tool in protecting yourself from manipulation tactics and maintaining autonomy in all relationships. It's not just about conveying information, but also about asserting your values, boundaries, and needs clearly and decisively. Effective communication helps you avoid ambiguity, minimize misunderstandings, and most importantly, prevent manipulators from easily controlling your emotions or actions. A clear example is in personal relationships. When your partner tries to shift the blame onto you for something, a good communicator will respond directly. "I understand how you feel, but I don't agree with placing this responsibility on me." Instead of silently accepting the blame or feeling guilty, you've stated your viewpoint confidently and assertively. This not only shields you from unjustified guilt, but also sets clear boundaries, making it harder for the manipulator to continue using their tactics. In the workplace, effective communication prevents you from falling prey to unreasonable demands from colleagues or bosses. If your boss assigns you an unfair task, instead of quietly overburdening yourself, communicate professionally. "I want to do my best, but I'll need more time to ensure quality work." By doing this, you set clear limits without creating conflict and stop being taken advantage of or manipulated. Communication also plays a critical role in resisting group pressure. When friends try to pressure you into an activity that you're uncomfortable with, a strong communicator can say, "I understand why you're excited about this, but I don't feel comfortable joining." Communicating firmly not only helps you stand your ground, but also sends a clear message about your personal limits, earning others' respect for your boundaries. How do you communicate effectively to avoid manipulation? First, use specific and direct language. Avoid being vague or indirect, as it gives manipulators room to twist your words and gain control. For instance, instead of saying, "I'll think about it," say directly, "I don't agree with this." Second, maintain a calm and firm tone. Manipulators often exploit your lack of confidence or emotional outbursts to take control of the situation. By keeping a steady, composed voice, you convey your message clearly and avoid letting the conversation turn into an emotional confrontation. Lastly, practice active listening. Listening helps you better understand others' perspectives, but it also helps you identify hidden manipulation tactics within their words. Ask questions to clarify any ambiguity and prevent yourself from being swayed by vague or misleading arguments. Communication is a powerful weapon in maintaining autonomy and resisting manipulation. When you can express your thoughts and feelings clearly and confidently, you not only protect your personal rights, but also foster healthier relationships based on mutual respect and honesty. Final note: manipulation is a harsh reality of life. It doesn't just occur in personal relationships. It infiltrates every aspect of society, work, and even your family. Manipulation isn't just about power. It's a profound invasion of your freedom, self-esteem, and ability to make sound decisions. That's why recognizing and combating it is essential if you want to maintain your autonomy and dignity. Tactics like gaslighting, ultimatums, blame, excessive flattery, or topic shifting are just a few examples of the many ways manipulators can control you. But don't let this realization cause you to lose faith in yourself or surrender your freedom. Instead, focus on developing the essential skills of self-awareness, critical thinking, setting clear boundaries, and effective communication. These tools not only help you resist manipulation, but also strengthen your personal power, allowing you to live according to your own values and desires. Most importantly, remember that you have the right to protect yourself and make your own choices. No one has the right to force you to compromise, abandon your principles, or do anything you don't want to do. Autonomy is your most valuable asset, and it's worth fighting to protect. In conclusion, manipulation may be subtle, but it only succeeds when you don't recognize it or passively accept it. Stay alert, confident, and ready to act in your defense against others' attempts to control you. Only then can you truly live a free, authentic life, unbound by the negative forces that seek to manipulate you. Be the master of your own fate, because in the end, your freedom and dignity are entirely in your hands. Thank you for watching this video. Let's support our wonderful community by hitting subscribe and turning on notifications right now. Show everyone that you're living kindly by liking the video and sharing your experiences in the comments. Take action now to spread positive energy.